Live. I think all my indicators show that we're live. So, firstly, I want to say, wow, long awaited, much appreciated. And funny enough, actually, before I even introduce you for a second, it's funny because you put out a tweet that said, for all the music creators who are like sticking with it, keep going, or something along those lines. And then that's what's a good message that I just resonated with. And then I went to your your profile page. And then the next thing said, how can I get my message out? I want to help more. So I was like, oh, this is supposed to happen. Like the universe put the pieces in place so that you can expand to help more people. So I wanted to thank you firstly for even having that mission. But yes.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, we have Adam Freeman, a man who is not, how can I say this? Controlled by other folks in that he mutes his mouth, if that makes sense. On Twitter, the cool part about your personality, I want to start with your personality before I get into the accolades and the professional stuff, is that because you can speak freely about how you feel, we resonate a little deeper because we feel like we can trust somebody who actually understands what we're going through. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And because of that, because you're not, it doesn't feel like you're controlled by somebody. It feels like we can have an open conversation with you without feeling like, oh, this person's just acting or something like that. So that's something I appreciate. But Adam Freeman, the man himself. Now you say entertainment attorney, and I want to help people understand the difference between attorney and lawyer. Can you explain that?
It was my understanding that they were the same thing.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I thought attorneys represented people in court and then lawyers didn't.
So attorney and lawyer are synonyms, but I don't represent people in court. There's two kinds of attorneys: litigation attorneys who are in court and handle lawsuits. I don't do that. I handle transactional matters, which are contracts and things like that.
Oh, so I stand corrected. I got corrected live. I love that you corrected me on that, because for the longest time I've been saying, look, guys, the difference is, oh man. But again, an advocate, and I saw what I love about what you do. Again, I want to focus on you as a person first before I get into all the minute details, is that you're not afraid to share your client list. So I even went to your tweet where you shared your client list and you big up your clients and you promote them and help them be seen. And it was just nice to see like you're part of a team. You give off that team spirit. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, because wouldn't you say, what's your difference compared to what you've seen? Because you said that you came up in a traditional, I think it was a firm you mentioned, where you're across. Yep. Can you explain like how you came up?
So my story from the very beginning is that like music was my thing growing up. I played in bands myself and toured and did that whole thing while I was in college. Went to law school, like not really knowing what I was going to do with my life. And while I was there, another kid in my class said, let's try throwing a concert. We just tried it. It went pretty well. And then we got into that. We started throwing consistent concerts. Then I started managing artists. But by the time I graduated, I wasn't really making enough money. So I moved to New York, got a job at this entertainment law firm that did mostly TV, film, and theater industry work. But it was actually a small firm, and I was only working for one of the partners. So if he was out of town or if he was too busy, I might not have any work. So during that time, I went back to the network of artists that I met through throwing shows and managing them and said, I'm a lawyer and I can actually help you. And that's how I got my first client. And that was the springboard to going out on my own.
Oh, I love that, because it shows how, and forgive me for going too minute if I'm going minute, but there's levels. When you get into a law firm, for example, there's entry level, forgive me for not knowing the name. And then there's the next level and the next level and partners at the top. Am I understanding that right?
Yep.
And so you're saying you work directly with the person at the top and you gain that experience.
Yes. But it was a small firm. So that's why I was able to, why it sounds like I skipped steps.
Oh, no, because I had a mentor from the years about 2020 to 2021. His name was Chris Moyer, and he was out of New York. Is there something special about New York and law? Because it seems like you guys want to have a presence in New York.
I think New York and LA are pretty equal when it comes to law. When it comes to the entertainment industry in general, it's like New York, LA, and then the rest.
Amazing. So now that you have this experience going out on your own, isn't that analogous to, I'll say, a music artist who may have gone to LA, seen the whole music industry thing, but now they want to do their own thing? and now they have to figure it out. Is it the same feeling? Does that make sense? Like, not independent truly, but is it the same feeling of having to figure stuff out?
In terms of going out on my own, yeah, I'd say yes. I'm not part of an infrastructure. I'm not part of a big company or anything. I have my own firm. I have to figure out all the internal systems and stuff and how are we actually going to work together just from scratch.
Right. You know what I saw too on your, and I'm gaining a lot from Twitter more than the combos because I feel like some of the interviewers, I guess they're coming from different perspectives, so they didn't dig deep into certain questions that the audience might have. Which is, you mentioned a lot about like the relationship between manager and artist or manager and producer. Now, do you approach your art with, like how do I explain it? Like a mastermind approach where you have mentees under you and you kind of train them and you take a cut? Or do you treat it as a service where when this person needs help, they hit me up? Does that make sense?
So the way that I and most lawyers typically work, like fee wise, is either hourly billing for all these services or a percentage of everything, but then they're not getting paid on a per matter basis because they might be handling stuff that's not related to money,
Right.
stuff like that. I'm not really acting as a mentor to my clients per se, but they are reaching out to me for advice and for questions and for, yeah, sometimes it's strategic advice just because I've handled these agreements 100 times for 100 different clients. So they just want to know what I've seen.
No, I love that because it's like myself. Like I have to kill. What is it? Kill what I eat or whatever. That probably sounds.
Eat what you kill.
Eat
Yeah.
what I kill. I always say that backwards. Got to eat what you kill. And so those types of mindsets are heavily result driven. Now I used to ask a lot of questions to Ash Kernan. Are you familiar?
I've seen that name around. I haven't dealt with him before. I don't know him.
So I used to ask him a lot of questions and pay for his time because I respected that and it made me pay attention. And so I would ask him literally the same question, maybe on 3 calls, ran up a bill, but I needed that reinforcement of like the little details. So would you say you offer something like that, or are you more so focused on deal flow?
No, that too, definitely. Like some clients or a lot of clients tell me I'm the only one who could really give them an honest answer because I'm not getting a commission. The manager's getting a commission from the deal. So the manager is definitely going to convince them to do it, but it might not be the right move for them in the long term. So they'll reach out to me and see what I think. But
Wow.
it, I've been thinking about this a lot. It sucks that you have to pay someone a lot of money to get the only honest answer you're going to get.
Right. That reminds us because I'm trying to draw it back to stuff that people can understand, which is that's the issue they have with they call them shills or grifters or whatever on YouTube for the producer community. People who get a product. I'm trying to look around like this harmonica. Okay. Let's say a company
Yeah.
sent me this harmonica and I make 30%. So if I can convince
Yeah.
somebody to buy it, this is the greatest harmonica in the world. And then I'm like overhyping it, but it's truly not the best spending decision. Is that what you're talking about?
Stuff like that. Yeah. Like if someone got offered a deal where they maybe offered a big advance that they're never going to recoup and it locks them in for a certain amount of time, their manager gets a 20% commission. So the manager is going to say, take it. But the artist might be locked into a multi-album deal all of a sudden and not have realized it.
Oh, can you break down? Let's talk about the negatives, the dark side of the music industry. No, I'm just teasing. What are some things that, from a producer's perspective, and then we could talk about artists because we're 90, a huge producer community, which is
Yeah.
what do producers specifically fail at? Where are the problem centers that you keep seeing that we can't see?
Oh man, I was just talking about this with someone like, how would I change the music industry if I could? Because I'm not really sure what the answer is. Because the thing that I wish would change is more producers ultimately standing up for themselves. A lot of producers talk about how hard it is to get paid, but they're also at the same time hesitant to send follow up emails because they don't want to come off as difficult. But I also recognize that that's still a tough position.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I wanted to give you ISO because I never know when that tractor is going to come by. So if the tractor come by, I'm going to mute my mic immediately. I wanted you to go in ISO mode, which is even talking about getting paid. I mean, Hit Boy put out a tweet, which was thankfully Hit Boy put that out to let younger producers understand that it is glamorous to be in the music industry, but there's still stuff that we have to address on a power level, which is the fact that people feel like they can just pay you 9 months later or a year later, however long later. So do you deal with? But okay, what would you change? I'll let you continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think that's it. Just more producers standing up for themselves because I've tweeted this out publicly. Like Illmind and Murda Beats and all those guys, they have split their bigger producer fee with my clients equally, exactly like they talk about on Twitter. But my clients get paid before them because I'm apparently the only one who's actually following up and pressing these people for payment. So my clients have never gone on social media to talk about how hard it is to get paid. They
Mm.
don't deal with those same issues.
And I'll vouch to say you're the first person to ever ask to confirm for the live. So you followed up even coming to this conversation. So he actually is doing what he's saying. It's rare. This is I'll kind of make an anecdote real quick. It's rare because this industry I've not worked with, I got to watch my words here. I've helped a Grammy winning producer from 1500 or nothing get an opportunity. I've helped whoever it is with however many accolades, but they're sloppy. Like at the top of the top level, they're sloppy, and that's scary to me. So how it's
Oh,
like,
definitely.
so it's like, how can producers complain when they are the ones that are the problem? Does that make sense?
They're sloppy in terms of just like being responsive or just getting the details when the label's asking for it type of thing.
Just they'll ideate and just kind of float in the air, and I'm like, look, here's this thing, the thing that you asked for, the exact thing that you asked for, and it just I don't know what it is with creatives. Maybe I'm being too broad. So you're saying that your skill set will help our vulnerability and our weakness, which is the follow up process. The stuff we like to plow forward with creativity. You're saying, look, I'll manage all the stuff that you plow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically, for a lot of my clients, they're making music, and then whenever they get an email from the label or something, they just forward it my way to handle. So it's just not even on their plate.
Wow. So okay, so I'm loving that you're giving this transparency with your client base. And I saw some of your clients. How do you? Because you mentioned on your tweets how some you're like, look, if their team only has a lawyer, run or something along those lines. Am I saying that right?
I don't remember which one you're talking about specifically.
It said before you sign an artist or producer deal and something about they only have a lawyer on their team, it might not be a good idea because the big lawyers are responsible for a lot of folks. So you might get, to the bottom of that pile of paper and not prioritized.
Right.
So how
Yeah, I
did
mean
yeah.
that's definitely true. A lot of people will pick their lawyer based off clout, but you have no idea if that's a good lawyer or not. Like
Wow.
based on who else their clients are, or there's certain attorneys who the label will like the major labels will always refer new artists to because those attorneys are probably going to be the easiest ones to work with.
Now, going with that thought process is how do you know when somebody's at capacity? Like, for example, how do we know that you're not at your capacity, or how do we know as consumers? I'm saying.
As consumers, from my experience, I honestly think a lot of people need to hold their managers and lawyers to a higher standard because a lot of people tell like I've gotten a lot of attorneys or a lot of clients from bigger attorneys, and they've told me like they couldn't get in touch with their attorney for months at a time, for a month at a time. I think it's pretty clear if they're not responding to you for a month, they're at capacity.
Wow. Now, can they just up?
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
My bad. My bad. There might be a delay, so I didn't mean to overtalk you. Uh, and I forgot my question. Please continue because it'll come back.
We're just talking about how bigger attorneys, yeah, might be at capacity, but yeah, I forgot what we were getting at too.
Dang. Oh, man, I'm an Aries, so my brain like it sparks and then it forgets what it just sparked about. I guess the main thing is going back to the paper list that people don't understand is yes, you could have somebody who's a killer in the game, but if you're 1000th in the line of priority, you're always going to be at the bottom because there's always going to be a higher priority movement or deal flow with that person. So how do they know? How do we know? Oh, here's what I
We're
was going
talking
to
about
ask
how
you.
do we know if they're at capacity? Yeah.
Here's the question that escaped me is can you just leave your representation? Can you just up and say, I'm moving on?
So when you hire a lawyer, they're going to have you sign an engagement agreement. And the answer to that question is ultimately in the engagement agreement. Like some people will sign, like some managers who take the percentage, it's really similar to a management situation where they're taking a certain percentage of everything for a certain amount of time. So those you definitely need to think about before signing those.
Like gross all revenues or gross revenues from music, or is it like a 360 situation?
Similar to management, so it would include like not only your producer advances, but your royalties and your publishing too. And then if there's live performances, yeah, a piece of that too.
Wow. What if
But
they
theoretically, you'll have the lawyer working on much more stuff and be much more involved than if you were paying them hourly.
right in that deal flow? Now here's a great question that's nuanced. Is a lot of people want to hop in with a manager or a lawyer or whoever, a law firm or management team, and they expect that person to drive all the deal flow for them as if they're the magic button for opportunity. So what what have you seen from experience? Is it that the artist creates opportunity and then they have a team to help them with that, or is it the other way around?
I mean, that's kind of like a more general music question, but I mean, it's definitely the artist or producer has to be bringing in business, like enough business that you can't handle it yourself. That's when you get a manager just to manage the business you're bringing in. You
Yeah,
should definitely never rely on anybody else to bring you business. It hardly ever works out that way.
interesting. Now, also, I think having somebody who's a partner or a manager or your lawyer is that buffer between that tough conversation sometimes, which is you're in the studio, dare you not bring up splits in hip hop before you get beat up in the studio. so is your position somewhere that helps people, I guess, negotiate through things they're too scared to say in person? Does that make sense?
Definitely. And even not even in person, just to handle the business themselves when you're talking with the label, you don't have enough experience. Some you don't have enough experience. Sometimes I can just come in and handle it for you. Not only, yeah, not only so you could separate yourself from that tough conversation and you could say, oh, it's my lawyer. I don't even know what he's doing, but you got to go with what my lawyer says. You could kind of play good cop, bad cop.
No, people don't understand how important that is. Oh man, because there's people who are in our circles that expect things from us and expect us like we're obliged to do something, obligated to do something, and sometimes they don't deserve it, so to speak. And you have to have somebody on your team who can be I'll say the scapegoat of energy without damaging that relationship. It's so important because you mentioned on Twitter or maybe retweeted how a lot of producers are afraid to speak up because they don't want to lose the relationship with the artist or the label situation. Can you explain that fine line of pissing somebody off and like ruining a career? Does that make sense?
Oh man, yeah, that's such a fine line. It's kind of a case by case basis. But a lot of people will will hear about a placement. A lot of producers will hear about a placement. They get a low ball offer, and they're too scared to even make a counter offer because they're scared. Oh, they're being too difficult. The producer or the artist is never going to go to them again because they're just going to go to whoever's making it easy. And that's kind of, I mean, that ultimately gets to kind of like producer mentality in general.
Mm.
I mean, it's easier for me to say from the outside, but I think a lot of the reasons why bigger producers, like I was saying, still won't really press labels about payment, and we'll talk about how hard it is because I think they go through the same kind of thing to some extent.
And that's, without going into a diatribe about independence and all this type of stuff, because you mentioned some things about blockchain. Were you heavy in the Web3 or during that movement?
I dabbled in NFTs a little bit.
Yeah, that was going to be game changing for musicians. I was so excited for people to actually get paid what they're worth and everything is accounted for. Um, Long story short is this is the message that I'm trying to teach is how to have power and influence without the music industry. I imagine it like pyramids. I'll keep it short. Is that you have Warner, Sony, Universal at the top of that pyramid, and everything flows down from there, whether it's labels or artists or whoever. So you don't want to break a chain up in the pyramid because it stops the flow. But if you create your own pyramid where you're at the top, like going off on your own and then handling your own deal flow and everything else, then you can control a lot more. So do you help people understand both sides of the equation or one side more than the other?
Definitely. And yeah, personally speaking, I'm very anti-label, bet on yourself, because if it goes well, you'll make even just way more money at the end of the day if you bet on yourself. So I'm definitely about that mentality, but I also understand there are situations where joining with the majors makes more sense for where you are at that time.
Interesting. I'm going to ask you one question before we go through like a case study, an imaginary case study. I'm trying to use big words because I'm with the lawyer today and you can see I'm using them wrong. is What was I going to ask you? Is dealing with now? I forgot what. Let me go to the case study, and my brain will go back. That's what I get for trying to be funny. Is the case study is most of the people that follow this channel and this culture are at home in their basement. You know, they're just making music, putting it online. They happen to strike a placement some type of way because their loop got picked up by so and so and so and so put it on the record. What have you seen is the process of them? Where do they get stuck in that process? And then how can you help them?
Ooh, I hear a lot of people get stuck at step zero. They just hear a song that has their loop, then they don't even know what to do. Or someone random from the label reached out 6 months ago and then never followed up with them. So it's really, yeah, they really get stuck at step zero. But as far as yeah, what's the process? What should they do kind of step by step? So yeah, if you hear a loop of yours, if you hear about a placement, no one ever contacted you, step one is yeah, find out who to reach out to on the artist team or the label. Maybe ask your producer friends who that is. Maybe reach out to a lawyer at that point, and maybe the lawyer can help you, and it's worth bringing them on at that point. But yeah, step one is find out who to reach out to, follow up with them. Don't be scared to send a follow up email every few days, and eventually they should just connect you with the right people if you just keep pressing them.
Good.
Like
Now,
I hear so
okay.
many people who reach out who would tell me they reached out to a label once 6 months ago, never heard back, and they're like, "Oh, the label's screwing me." But like, people are busy. People get constant emails. They're dealing like people at the labels. They're overworked. They're dealing with 100 projects at a time.
Right.
So you got to send a follow up just to cut them some slack.
Yeah, like man, I could tell you from real life experience, not to take us on a tangent, because my brain's doing that today for some reason. Is when I had I didn't have my son. When my fiance had my son, our son, my brain just like couldn't focus enough on stuff that was happening. So a lot of people hit me up. We had collab stuff, we had reels, we had all this collaborative stuff, and then I just forgot about it. It wasn't that I didn't want to do it. I just simply got overwhelmed from the new family member. And 9 months later, I finally get my brain cells back, and I'm hitting people up like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for your patience." It's not that we weren't paying attention. Sometimes it's like stay in front of me for as long as you can, and then I'll remember what we were supposed to do. Is that what you mean? And just people just
Definitely, yeah. People got COVID and were out of the office for a week. People have new babies. Yeah, people have real life getting in the way sometimes.
right. And so who do you like to represent? Do you now I've seen some of your client lists, but who do you like to represent and who are you looking for? How can I benefit the producer community and also what you have building as well? Because I think from what I see is that people can get the advice and the expertise from yourself because they get stuck on all those little things, like just the skill of following up. How do you word an email that doesn't sound like a chat GPT email and a clear AI email that sounds fake as crap and to get people's attention? Or how do you use templates for their beat stores that aren't just the ones that are baked into BeatStars and like convoluted already. How do you use these invoice templates, to get people? Because I'll even tell you, when I was starting my services for content creation, to invoice some of these audio companies, I was like, it felt weird to invoice them for one, and for two, I'm like, how do I even write the invoice? Like, what do I, So the fact that there's you templates that you have, for example, that can help people out like that. How do you see yourself building with the producer community? And are you just do you have your small team of people that you focus on? Like, what is your angle for the producer community?
And so I don't only represent producers. I represent some managers, labels, people kind of all over the place. Yeah, so people on all sides. In terms of clients, like what am I looking for? I mean, I'm basically trying to figure out how I can affect the producer community, how I can have the biggest effect on the producer community, because I've been doing what I'm doing for, I've been on my own for 7 years now. And I kind of see like nothing changing. So I'm just trying to figure out how you can actually educate people without them having to go through it themselves and get screwed themselves before they finally figure it out. But I also don't know what the answer is because there's so many interviews out there, books. There's so many artists who go on these interview shows and give their exact stories, and yet people like it still happens these days.
No, it's so deep because I think this is why the conversation of producer union keeps popping up. I put it in the YouTube title because that's the bigger conversation underneath all the conversations right now, which is, should producers come together? But I brought this topic up during 2020, during the pandemic, because I wrote a book to just help people. I was so tired of seeing people just give up. I was like, let me write a book and just share all my knowledge. And I'm saying all this to say is, okay, you'll hear a Sunny Digital propose a producer union. You'll hear the top producers. I'm forgetting all the names off the top of my head. You hear a lot of people talk about it. But again, the problem comes from the fact that they're in a pyramid that's controlled by Universal, Sony, and Warner. So if they can't control the top of the pyramid, there's nothing the bottom of the pyramid can do to control the top. And I think that's the ultimate disconnect in that equation when people are trying to producer unionize under that pyramid. I do think producers can unionize, goodness gracious, under our own structure where we own the companies and we own all this stuff. And now we can organize. Does that make sense? Or am I making this overly complicated?
Yeah, when it comes to the union, I mean, just seeing what happened in Hollywood the past few months, people were on strike for, what was it, like 3-4 months? They got no income. So I think that's the biggest thing holding back the producer union is producers are not gonna, or producers, musicians in general, are never gonna forego work ultimately. They're never gonna turn it down for the sake of the union.
Right. I was like, everybody in this producer community is not going to be a Jesus Christ and a martyr for everybody else. It's just not happening.
Exactly.
In that system. So what do you think are some ways producers can strategically organize to get more power and leverage? Because I see you always advocating for a producer or just a creative who just doesn't understand their value.
Right. I think that's the thing, is people don't realize how much value they actually have or how much power they actually have. Because no one ever told them. Like, for example, I have producer clients who are agreeing to $1,000, $2,000 because they didn't want to rock the boat, like we were saying. But I guess finally over time they became jaded enough that they were ready to do it. Ask for $5K, they got it. Next time ask for $10K, they got it. They're like, what the heck?
Wow.
So just hearing things like that, it's so simple, but it's just crazy how much people don't even know what to ask for. I mean, that's a lot of the value that managers or lawyers can add, is just even knowing what to ask for, because you don't want to come into a placement with a no-name artist, ask for $25K, you'll get laughed at. But if you get the Drake placement, it might be a different story.
That's interesting because you're bringing up a real world situation, which is people not understanding their value and what to offer. What to ask for. So I want to ask you now. There's different ways people get paid. Some people get paid all at once, all at one time. Some people get paid over time. Now, if they're charging more, would you suggest that they should take it all up front or spread out over time? This is just a question before I ask you another question.
Well, I mean, it's really, everything is negotiable. So if you're asking for the higher advance, it'll most likely mean having to decrease the royalty on the back end. So that's kind of really, who are you betting on in that situation?
Yeah. And I think it was DJ Payne one. Sorry, we have 5 minutes left. So I'm trying to speed ask you all these questions because I don't have to pay Zoom. I'm so cheap. I don't even get to pay. Every time I pay for Zoom, I waste it. And I'm like, why am I paying for Zoom? And then when I don't pay, I need the time. What was I going to ask you? Is producers DJ Payne one asked about how some deal flow is they'll offer back end as like compensation, but there is no back end. So it's like, how do you teach someone to bet on themselves and at the same time, is it the fine line? Does it always change? Is there a standard? What's your position? You don't have to give a number, but what's your position on?
Yeah, that's a tough one where, to give like a kind of general answer, it really is case by case. But I think my advice there would be to like ask questions. How is the artist releasing the project? Is there an album, or is he really just putting on DistroKid himself? Because if he's putting on DistroKid himself, they can just add you to the splits, and then you don't have to wait for him to recoup anything. If you start getting paid, it might be totally fine. But a lot of people don't even know what's going on.
Deep. True.
Or you find out some small artist is actually signed to a major and has a budget. You could have asked for a higher advance.
Right. And then the A&R is skimming that budget. Oh, there's so many things to go into. But I want to also try to help people understand the fact that we can make money for other people and then they give us a cut of that. but you also have to trust that that person's going to pay you. Like I've worked with a lot of audio companies, and luckily there's a few that I work with and I'm an affiliate with that I know they will send the payment. Some companies could take forever just because they're sloppy again on the back end. So how do you navigate that frustration for producers in understanding that, you know, everybody's business is just different? You know, it's not the same business that you're going to be working with every single time.
Totally. And that's, I mean, that's really the issue that comes down to why producers get paid so late is the sloppiness of these labels, because they're just overworking the A&R admin people, and the admin people are probably right out of college or something. So they're just not going to do a good job. So in terms of navigating the frustration, I mean, it's definitely just using my experience to just manage the expectations of the client. Most producers are very lax about it. We'll wait months, like I was getting at before. Every once in a while, I deal with someone who's a shark and wants to follow up every single day. So I have to tell them, we got to chill out a little bit. But I, of course, love the energy. But yeah, we just got to chill out a little bit. And yeah,
Now you
they
just
usually trust me.
thank you for explaining that. You just helped me see a parallel, which is producers wait already so long. It's like, why not go on strike? You're already not getting paid for 9 months. Oh man, that's funny. I'm gonna give you ISO, where it says you get off thoughts and concepts, because I just want to see where we can elevate the producer community, but also add value back to you as well for your time and energy, because you're putting out a good message. It's just I have 2 minutes left here, and I want you to be able to share the main problem again that you see producers running into, because again, our issue is we don't see our own problem.
Totally.
And artists
And I
too.
think, yeah, my biggest piece of advice is follow up, realize how much power you have. And if someone's gonna not respond to you, treat you like shit, not pay, why do you want to keep working with those people? Why are you scared to be difficult when you're dealing with those sort of people? That's something as a non-artist, non-musician, I can't wrap my head around.
No, that's super deep.
And, yeah,
Sorry, I
that's
keep cutting
it.
your thoughts off. I'm like, does he have more? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Right.
I want to ask you though, what is your stance on this thought? I have a minute to ask you this. Is if they here's my phrase: if they don't reciprocate in the beginning, they're not going to reciprocate later.
Totally. I think that's exactly what I'm getting at. You're so excited you get a placement with some no-name artist. It's your first placement, but then they're not going to pay you. They offer you $0 and say like, take it or leave it. What makes you think they're going to change? Yeah. What makes you think if you keep working with them, they're going to all of a sudden start respecting you just out of nowhere?
Wow. So how do you find it working with, now? Who do you seek? I guess you have a minute left. I want to make sure I'm bringing you energy too. Who are you seeking to build with? True, or is it artists more so? Is it the people who build the products underneath? What is your goal?
I'm trying to still build my book of business, build my client base in terms of like, what am I looking for in a client? It's kind of just being on top of your business, paying attention to it really on any level is really what I'm looking for. Some people are just total space cadets and will totally hand it off. Those are the people who end up getting screwed.
Hmm. Big facts. Somebody said you need an accountant to watch your accountant, and I felt that. Oh man, I had an accountant take 20,000 of my dollars one time. I was so pissed because I wasn't
Yeah.
paying attention. I trusted him way too much. Um, we have like 30 seconds left. You want to shout out anybody in your family or any kind of last shout outs before this Zoom ends?
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope I was able to add some value, and check out my website, acfriedmanlaw.com. My email's on there. Feel free to reach out, even if you just have questions. I'm happy to indulge.
There it is. I'm gonna send all my email folks to you. I appreciate you. I'm gonna wish you
Of
well
course.
before this
Thanks
thing
for having me.
closes. Oh, dang it, it closed. Darn it. I had a feeling it was gonna close right when I said that. But I want to thank everybody who's here. I wanted that conversation to be face to face and not distracted by the chat, because you know there's certain people in the industry who kind of, what's the word, parade around as if they're important, and there's other people who are really trying to help people and they get overlooked, I'll say, because they're put into the bucket of people who are just trying to parade around. And so all I'm saying is, Adam Friedman, I could tell he's on a mission to actually help you guys gain your self-esteem back and gain your confidence in this music business. It goes way deeper than just YouTube and social media. And he can handle all that other stuff. I can handle the stuff with social media and all the online stuff. I'm sure he can guide you more accurately, on the music end with all the, again, I don't even know all the codes. It's IPI, ISWC. It's so many codes to remember. It's too many to remember. But I appreciate you guys. This is just a quick impromptu live. I just wanted to introduce a new guest for you. And thank you, Adam Friedman. If you're watching this back, we appreciate you. Many more conversations.